Hi guys, welcome back. If you're new to my channel, my name is Lizzie. And as a side note, if you're hearing noises around me, that's because I'm in my new apartment. So I have neighbors that are that side of me, and that side of me, and upstairs. And sometimes there's people walking around and everything, and maybe just a little bit of noise. So if you hear anything, it's my neighbors. I thought I would make a little fun-ish video. It's gonna be a story time. I'm not exactly sure what I'm gonna title this video, but this is November, and so I was kind of thinking about my grandmother. So I thought I would make a video about some stories that I grew up hearing. So here we go. My grandmother grew up in Missouri on a farm. She had many animals, as you do on a farm, and this was maybe in the 30s or 40s, and so even though she had many animals growing up, her favorite animal was named Pendulum. He was a dog. My grandmother always described him as having this long tail that grew out so much. And Pendulum would, I don't know what breed of dog he was. I never asked my grandmother. I wish I did. All I know is he would herd the horses and sometimes even the sheep and cattle, animals like that. And my grandmother told this story that when he was an older dog, his tail grew out so much that when a horse accidentally stepped on it, because he was herding the horses, the part of his tail got stepped on, and he lost like half of his tail. And that was their favorite dog. But because my grandmother grew up with, I believe it was about 6 or 7 sisters, and like maybe 1 brother, if I recall correctly. And so anyways, even though half of his tail got cut off by the horse, he lived a very long life. And you know, I'm sure you've heard of stories of dogs where they don't want their owners to see them pass away or be in pain or anything. And so when he was an old dog, Pendulum, he went into the woods and he went there to die. And so my grandmother and her siblings, they were looking all over for a peddler, and finally they found him, and he'd already passed away. So, and that was her favorite dog. Everyone loved Peddler, but she was more attached to Peddler than everyone else. Another story that I'm going to tell is my grandmother growing up on the Missouri farm. So, how her life was growing up in that time was, it was where they would get up super early in the morning. They do all of their chores on the farm, fetch eggs from the chicken coops and feed the animals and chores like that. And then when it was time for school, they would pack their bags pretty much, and but there was not a bus stop that would go near their house. So they would have to leave early so that they could walk all the way to the past the end of the driveway and down a dirt road, just so that they could be on time for their school bus. And then that's how they would get to school every morning. And so, and then after school, they would walk home, and it didn't matter if it was snowing, if it was spring, winter. It didn't matter what season, it didn't matter whether it was raining, cats and dogs. They had to walk to the school bus, and after school, they would have to walk all the way back home. Because back then, there was no bus stop in every direction like there is nowadays. Nowadays, you see a bus stop pretty much everywhere, depending on your location. But back then, in Missouri, there were not a lot of bus stops, not a lot of areas where school buses would stop to pick up kids. Depending on your area, the kids had to walk all the way back from school to home and home to school. Some kids couldn't get on a school bus. So that's how my grandmother got around. That's how she lived growing up. And so now I'm going to move on to another story. This is kind of a comical one. So I never got to meet my grandfather because he died before I was even born. But my mother told this story to me when I was growing up. So, I'm sure you all know what possums look like, right? Well, apparently my grandfather thought it was funny, and so he found some baby possums and he put them in one of those old sacks. It wasn't Walmart bags or anything like that. They didn't have bags like that back then. They had these big brown bags that were, I guess you would say they were kind of made out of straw or something like that. Bags like that. Like the kind you see in like a Western movie that cowboys are carrying over their shoulders with like flour or something. Like all their belongings inside. Yeah, bags like that. So anyway, my grandfather took a bag like that, sack, whichever you want to call it. He found some baby possums, he stuck them in the bag, and when all the kids were home, and that would be my mother, which my mother is the baby of the family. My aunt, I almost said her name, but my aunt, the one not married into the family. So my aunt, who is the middle child, and then my uncle, the firstborn of the family. So when all three of them were home, their mother was home too, but my grandfather came home with a sack of possums slung over his shoulder after he came from work one night, or maybe it was day. Can't exactly remember if it was day or evening, but he came home and and the kids wanted to know what was in the bag. And so she threw the bag onto the floor, and the baby possums came scurrying out of the bag and scared the kids. He thought it was quite a joke, quite funny. And the way my mother always told it, it was pretty funny. So, those are the stories that I grew up hearing. So, that was my video. I hope you enjoyed it. Don't forget to comment if you want to, like, subscribe, stuff like that. And I keep forgetting to say this at the end of my videos, but I do have a Reddit. If you go to any of my older videos, I have a link to it, and if you click on it, that's my Reddit, where you can share your stories that you want me to put in a video, and I'll just make a video of those. So far, I haven't had any comments or posts in my Reddit, so thought I'd mention that I have a Reddit and everything. So, without further ado, that's the end of my video. Thank you for watching.